I've been thinking about something lately, and it is something that I cannot ignore or stop being bothered about. And I've been bothered about this for definitely more than 5 years. And I've talked about this to a lot of people. Now, I cannot ignore this because it is affecting a lot of lives around the world. It has destroyed the lives of millions of young human beings from different parts of the world. And I'm not talking about an earthquake or a pandemic or not even a natural disaster. I'm talking about the education system. And as strange as it sounds, it is something that we need to be addressing. A fine evening, a student in South Korea walks into the middle of the road and he sets himself on fire. And he says that he has disappointed his parents because he was not able to crack the entrance examination. And this is not an isolated event. This is happening in different countries to hundreds and thousands of students. Now, this is a pattern that you can see across countries and continents. When there's an examination coming up, the suicide rates spike up, and when the exam is over, it just drops. And this is a pattern that keeps repeating like a cycle. The question is, why does a student, a kid, feel that suicide is the only option? Why does he feel like if he does not crack the entrance examination, it's just pointless? His life is meaningless. This is not just the examination problem. This is the problem of the entire system that the modern education is built around. And when I was a kid, I actually had a problem. I used to think sideways. I don't know if that makes sense, but I was not thinking what I was told to. I would always have questions. I would ask why continuously for the 17th time, and I would still be curious about stuff. And I'm sure it's just not me, but a lot of you guys as well. When you were younger, you had a lot of questions and you were curious about stuff. You used to ask a lot of questions about things that excited you, and you would never get bored. And somewhere between grade 7 and grade 12, I just lost this ability. I wouldn't say I lost it, but it was taken away from me. I actually stopped asking questions because asking questions were seen as something that I'm not supposed to do and was not meant for me. Either ways, I stopped questioning a lot of things. And that is what I'm trying to figure out. What schools actually does is that it does not teach you to think. It teaches you the boundaries of thinking. It gives you a list of instructions on what you're supposed to think. And you have to fit your mind inside the framework that they're building for you. I would explain the modern education system as something that is being taught in different boxes. So you have a mathematics box, you have a science box, and you have a, let's say, a literature box. And you're not supposed to mix between these. It's supposed to stay divided. It's never connected, and it's not together. And you're not feeling a soulful connection towards the knowledge that you're acquiring because it itself is divided. So naturally, you learn to answer their questions and not your questions. So your questions that's coming out of your mind doesn't have any relevance. It's just, useless. And you're supposed to answer the questions that are being asked to you and that they tell will come in the examination. So naturally what happens is that you learn to answer the questions they ask and not the questions that you have in your mind. The questions that you have in your mind is just useless and pointless. And you're supposed to answer the questions or learn to answer the questions that they tell will come in the examination. How strange is that? Every person has creativity inside of them. Not in the same amount, but it varies, but everyone has some sort of creativity inside of their mind. And the problem with creativity is that it is not something that you can just turn on and turn off like a switch. You cannot randomly bring out your creativity at 2 p.m. on a Monday afternoon when your arts class is happening. And that's just not practical. Because creativity is not something that you can turn on and turn off like a switch. It is something that comes out naturally, and you cannot give and allocate a time for it. And something even strange is that creativity, very often in schools, are templated. It has a set of rules, and you're supposed to do it according to those rules. That is ridiculous. Now, let's talk about the examinations. The problem with modern examinations is that it has a fixed template. You're supposed to answer in a way that you're instructed to. You don't have the freedom to answer in a way you want, even if the answer in the end is correct. So you'll have to, compress the creativity of your brain in order to please the examiners. So naturally, what studying becomes is that it becomes what the system wants, and not what is good for you or what is best for you. So learning is not about understanding something completely anymore. It's a lot about giving the answers to the examiners, the answers that they want in the template that they've given to you. And it's about the grades, it's about the A's and the B's and the C's. It's not about perfecting a human. So I have had incidents in my life when I was looked at very strangely by my teacher when I asked a question about the meaning of life when learning about the evolution of human beings. And the teacher was staring at me as if I asked the most stupid question ever. And I wouldn't actually blame the teacher, because according to the system, the question that I asked is off topic. It's outside the boundary. It's in the danger zone. I'm not supposed to ask that. Unfortunately, curiosity has no topic. Curiosity is something that is generated naturally from inside of your mind, and not something that is being generated according to what subject you're studying. So by the time you graduate, you don't see the lines anymore. You don't see the boundary, because you're so locked up inside of this framework that you can't think outside the box. You have been trained to stay inside of this boundary so well that you can't even see the lines anymore. It's invisible to you. And you naturally begin to fear questions without answers. The problem is that once you're afraid of questions without answers, you would not ask any questions. You'd be afraid of asking questions, and you'll not be curious anymore. And the system will have you deceived to think that thinking outside of the curriculum is just a waste of time. It's just pointless. Now, when I think of the version of myself before I got into school, it's entirely different from the person that I became after I got into school. Before enrolling to school, I was very, very curious about a lot of things. And I'm not really sure if it's just my case or if it's the case with everyone else, but I've seen young kids who ask very, very good questions that adults cannot ask, even if they wanted to. And it's not the fault of the adults. It's just that the system has made them like that. Whereas the kids, they're free from the system. A few weeks back, I was having a coffee with one of my elder cousins. And the cousin told me that I was borderline disturbing when I was a kid, because I used to ask a lot of questions. And I didn't disagree. I was borderline disturbing because I used to ask a lot of questions. Now, questioning a lot of things was actually making me more and more curious and enlightening me. And I know for a matter of fact that the questions that I used to ask was not very good questions. Most of them were stupid, as I said in the beginning. And I didn't think twice before asking a question. I just wanted to find the answer. I didn't even know if there was an answer to that question, but I just knew that I have to ask it. And I was curious to find it out. Now, what school actually makes you think is exactly this. It makes you think that asking such questions is a waste of time. And I know that version of myself is still there deep inside me somewhere, but that kid is just dead. I cannot find it again. I cannot find that version of myself again. So to be honest, now I don't really have answers to the questions that I have still in my mind, but I'm just thinking of it. Why is the system like this? Why does it have to be oppressing and suppressing the creative minds of young citizens? So how many ideas have we killed in ourselves just because we thought it's not right to explore more about it? How many kids have stopped asking questions just because we told them just shut up and sit down? Because this is a class and you're not supposed to disrupt the environment of the class. And we also have to think, how would actually education look like if the kids in our schools actually asked the questions that they really wanted to ask, and they learned what they really wanted to learn, and we never suppressed their curiosity? What does it actually mean that a student in South Korea, and not just in South Korea, feels that an exam is more important than his life, and he feels that if he fails that exam, his life is meaningless and he would disappoint his parents? To be honest, I really don't know. I genuinely don't know why we've gotten ourselves into the situation. And I think these questions actually matter more than any answer I could ever give you. Eventually, why I decided to do a video on this topic is because I came across a very interesting quotation, which is often criticized by those conspiracy theorists. However, it actually makes sense. The quote is that I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. Now, this quote is often attributed to John D. Rockefeller. That is very shocking. That is why they didn't want us to think.